Hi friends, it's Linda here, and it's all about tree identification today. Now, when you get beside a tree, like for example this one here, the first question you want to ask yourself is it deciduous or is it coniferous? So if it's deciduous, the leaves decide to drop in the fall. If it's coniferous, they have cones and they have needles. So what do you think? Is this deciduous or is this coniferous? What do you think? If you said it's coniferous, you are correct. Now the next question is, are the needles in clusters or are they single needles attached directly to the twig? So I'm actually going to sacrifice this one. Okay, so when we look at these needles, we can see they're not single needles attached directly to the twig. They actually are in a cluster, okay? So, or a bunch. And if you look at it, if I can hold it up right, you should see 5 needles there. Maybe that's an easier way for you to see. You should be able to count 5 needles. So right away we know this is a type of pine tree. Okay, now I'll give you a hint. There's a color in front of its name, and the color also has 5 letters. 5 needles in the bunch, 5 letters. What do you think it is? If you guessed white pine, you are correct. It is a white pine tree. And an interesting fact about white pines, they are Ontario's provincial tree. They grow the tallest and the straightest. They're known to be the king of the forest. They used to use them as masts on ships and telephone poles today. So it's always good to have a fact to go along with a tree. Okay, we're on to our second tree. The mosquitoes love me today. Is this coniferous or deciduous? Okay, if you guessed coniferous, you are correct. And are the needles in clusters or bunches, or are they attached in singles directly to the branch? And if you look carefully, you can see they are singles, which is cool. So we know that they're singles, not clusters. And I actually took one needle off, and if you can roll it between your fingers, that means that it's 4-sided. So that would eliminate a hemlock or a balsam fir tree because their needles are flat. But if they're 4-sided, they should roll between your fingers. So this would be, any guesses? It's a white spruce. A lot of people like to use them as Christmas trees. Okay, time for the next one. Okay, it's time for our next tree. So looking at this one here, is it coniferous or deciduous? If you guessed deciduous, you are correct. And this one is quite recognizable by its leaf. So I'm guessing you probably have an accurate guess for this one already. I want to show you some branching patterns because they're very interesting. So give me a second and I'll show you some. So what we're looking at are opposite branching patterns. And what that means is one branch is directly opposite from the other. I know it's hard to see, but that's what we're looking at. Okay, so any guesses for this tree? If you guessed it's a maple, you are correct. And if you notice the leaves, it kind of looks like a U right in this section, and the word sugar has a U in it, so this is actually a sugar maple. All right. And it's actually Canada's tree. It's not Ontario's provincial tree, it's Canada's national tree. Okay, so this tree in behind me right here, I'll pull down a branch. Is it coniferous or is it deciduous? And if you guessed coniferous, you're right, and you can actually see the cones. Now, are the needles attached in singles directly to the branch, or are they in clusters? Take a close look. If you said clusters, you are correct. All right, so the clusters or the bunches, there are how many do you see? There are actually, let me just spread it out here a little bit. There's 2 of them. Now, a lot of pine trees have 2 needles in the cluster. There's one called a jack pine, which is one of my favorites, but the needles are twisted. But these needles are quite long. I'd say they're probably at least 10 centimeters long, 8 to 10 centimeters long. And if you look at the bark of the tree, if you can see the bark of the tree in behind me there, it's a very red or brownish color. And that would tell me right away that it is any guesses? It's a red pine.